just let me know when we're going.
Okay, now. Yep. Just check.
Okay.
Well, good morning and welcome to our Facebook Live session. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we'll be speaking with one of our teachers. We hope that this session will give you a glimpse of what you could expect at UCSI International School, Kuala Lumpur. If you have any questions during the session, please do post those in our chat and we'll be moderating those, and the appropriate ones we would like to try to answer at the end of the session if time permits. So without further ado, let's begin our interview. So could you please introduce yourself and tell us your role here at UCSI International School, Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, with pleasure. Good morning, Matt, and good morning to everybody else out there. Pleasure to be here. My name is Chris Edmunds, and I'm going to be taking up the head of secondary role, head of primary and head of secondary role here at UCSI KL. And I think one of the things I'm most looking forward to is I'm actually going to be teaching a couple of classes. Whatever our titles are, I think it's important to remember we're all teachers. So head of primary, head of secondary, and teaching some music.
Great. And could you just tell us really quickly, where were you before Malaysia and what you were doing?
Yeah, well, Malaysia is a bit of a home from me. It's this is actually my third time here in Malaysia. Prior to this tour of duty, I was actually living and working in Bulgaria. I was working as a language teacher, but I've spent a number of years in leadership roles in many different countries across the world, including the UAE and China, in Germany, and also in India. So well traveled, and but very much happy to be back here in Malaysia at the moment.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And could you just tell us a little bit, since you're going to be the head of primary and secondary, could you tell us about how UCSI International School Kuala Lumpur is developing the international mindedness in students?
Yeah, that is really a great question and a fundamental question, Matt. I think any effective school, any outstanding international school must require that international mindedness is developed in its students and also in its teachers. We are also role models. So it's important for us to understand what international mindedness is and perhaps what it isn't. I'm sure we're all used to, in our work environments and school environments, as teachers, as parents and students out there, we're all used to something like International Day, where we get to taste some great food from around the world and participate and experience a couple of festivals.
I enjoy that food.
And culture. Yeah, me too. I'm a foodie like you, Matt. But we all enjoy that day. The flags, and we talk about famous people and cultures. But that's not really, I think, what we mean by international mindedness. International mindedness is a disposition. It's something we have as human beings. And it's very important that schools, particularly international schools, develop those skills and qualities inside all of us. And I think one of the first things, maybe I'll just to say, one of the first things about wanting to understand others and learning how to live with others is actually knowing yourself first, knowing who you are. There is a Chinese proverb, I think, that says if you want to change, understand and change the world around you, you have to go around your own house 3 times. So knowing yourself is a critical component of developing an international mind. And students here at UCSI KL are going to be coached and mentored and encouraged towards knowing who they are. It's a very important 21st century skill as well, Matt, because the world that young people will live in 20, 30 years from now is going to be a world of relentless change. And knowing yourself, who am I, is going to be your biggest tool in surviving. So knowing yourself is number 1, and maybe I'll drop in number 2 here, and we maybe can come back to a little bit of the other features. So once you know yourself, you're in a better position to know others, and showing empathy is another quality that is really critical to developing an understanding and international in an internationally minded way. Being able to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, being able to see something through their eyes, to experience is really critical so that we can eventually say, hey, listen, I'm not always right. I'm not the one who's always right. Other people can also be right. And students here at UCSI KL will be learning those skills, knowing yourself, being empathetic, understanding other people's cultures and histories through their own eyes, and mostly understanding that I'm not always right. Other people can also be right. Maybe we can come back to one or two other things.
I did want to follow up on that just a little bit, Chris. What about a student who has never been in an international environment, whether it's an international school, never been overseas? Would they feel nervous walking in and trying to study here where we're trying to?
Well, to be honest, if any of us said we're not nervous as we enter a new organization and a new school with new people and new ways of doing things around here.
It shouldn't be part of that.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. I think it broke up a little bit. Would you just repeat the last bit there, perhaps?
I just said, what would a student who's fresh, to an international environment? How would this school help him or her?
Okay, I think it's very important that the school supports a student in that sense, in supporting who they are. Again, it goes back to knowing the self. One of the prime responsibilities of a school, we as teachers, is to know our students, is to know who they are as people. Because until and unless we know them, we can't provide support, or we can't provide effective support. So again, teachers modeling empathy, teachers modeling understanding, teachers being prepared to say, I value you who you are as an individual, I value where you've come from, I value the life experiences you've had. Let's see if we can connect those to your new school. Let's see if we can make connections between who you are and what you have to our way of doing things here, so that you become part of us and we become part of you. It's all about knowing the student.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Well, it seems to me that there must be maybe something behind you being a teacher. Like, could you maybe take a step back from UCSI International School KL and tell us, what inspired you personally to be a teacher, to get into education?
Yeah.
Maybe tell us a little bit about your journey to be here.
Sure, yeah. I think we're all familiar with that aphorism sometimes, if you can do and if you can't teach. Well, I've been always one of those people who wanted to teach from the beginning. I was somebody who wanted to become a teacher. Why? Because I had the benefit of having outstanding teachers and mentors along the way, including my parents, including those who were around me at the various schools I traveled to. I traveled a lot as a student, as a child. I was a classic third culture kid and a bit of a global nomad and all those cliches. So I had great teachers and great mentors who inspired me. And, through that, I also wanted to make a difference to the lives of young people, to help and assist with growth and development. And I always say now, whether I'm in a leadership position or in a teaching position, being a teacher is not about teaching. It is about making learning happen. And our job to help others learn comes from our desire to want to do that in the first place. So I've been lucky. I've had great mentors and great teachers.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so what would the students here at the school, what would they expect, or what could they expect in your classes?
Well, again, I think it's one of the fundamentals for me is that we are here as human beings. We're here as, yes, teachers. We're here as role models. But I think what students can expect, moreover, what they can deserve, is absolute authenticity. I need to be me. And if you see me in school, or if you catch me in the supermarket, or you catch me downtown, I'm the same person. I'm authentic. I'm a human being. I also make mistakes, so I want students to understand that I am also a human being, and I have as much to learn from students in my class as maybe they have to learn from me. I've touched on this also. Understanding students as individuals is something that students here at UCSI KL can expect from me, and I'm sure from all of our teachers, getting to know our students. Expecting us to be human. Sure, we should have command of our subject, we should have presence in the classroom, we should be able to inspire and motivate and engage. But being a human being and being an authentic human being who also makes mistakes and also is willing to learn, I think, is for me the most fundamental thing that students deserve of me.
That's great. What advice would you be giving to students, either in general or specifically? What advice would you give to students who would be studying here?
Well, maybe I'll use this opportunity to sort of pitch back into the Developing International Mindedness, because it links neatly into that. And I've mentioned already that the willingness to accept we can be wrong, because when we are wrong and we make mistakes, we learn from mistakes, and we learn that others, maybe with different cultural backgrounds, with different life experiences, with different perspectives on the world, other people can be right. So that's one piece of advice I really do want to reinforce. I think one thing, and I'll go back to knowing oneself, the reason I say get to know who you are and be able to answer the question is, who am I, is because it's going to be for sure that being at school is not anymore about just gathering information and developing skills.
Sorry, Chris, could you just go back to
Sure.
go back 3 sentences that you just cut off just for a quick second?
Yeah.
The reason you ended with getting to know who you are.
No problem. And what I went on to say is that when we go to school in the 21st century, in this part of the 21st century, it isn't just about gathering information and developing skills anymore. Information is all around young people. So one thing that we as teachers need to do is to coach students in how to become more discerning in how they use information. But the stark reality for any student coming to our school, indeed any other international school, is that their future is going to be so unpredictable. They will need to be able to reinvent themselves constantly. Constantly is going to be the key to success, because change is going to happen also relentlessly. And so a final word of advice I'd give to any student is this, and it may sound as though we're doing ourselves out of a job, but it's honest. Do not rely too much on adults. They won't be able to understand your world. You have to know yourself to be able to survive in your world. We're here, we'll support you, we'll coach you. But to any of you out there who are considering UCSI-KL as your school, don't rely on the adults too much. Be fearless and be relentless and go and make your own world out there.
Thanks so much, Chris. And I guess we'll take a few minutes here, or a minute here, just to see if there's any questions that have come through that perhaps you could answer.
Sure.
Anything final that you would like to add here, Chris, before we move on to the questions part?
For sure. I think maybe there's one more part of that international mindedness framework that we will be relentlessly pursuing here, and that is, we live in a globalized world, we live in a world where we're all connected, and inevitably conflict happens. Conflict will happen, and I think as internationally minded students and teachers, we shouldn't fear conflict. We should learn how to be able to discuss, to negotiate, to understand somebody else's needs. Conflict is a part of life, accept it, and then learn how to cope with it, deal with it, manage it. And when you're negotiating, whether your future is as a business person or in a profession, be respectful of others when you negotiate. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not something that you have to win or lose. We have to learn how to live together, and that's at the core of what UCSI-KL will be doing in ensuring and requiring that international mindedness is present in everything we do.
No, I would fully agree. I think the people that I've learned the most from are actually the people that I've disagreed the most from as well.
Yeah.
And because both of us were willing to push through and not just get angry and storm away, but we worked through the conflict and we found a solution that worked for both of us. And for those people, I'm very grateful for. So I think I would love to see that in our students as well.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know about your experiences, Matt, but I've worked in many different school situations, and something I value also is that schools are not just for learning, but actually if we go to the root of the word school, it means a place of learning and a place of leisure. a place of leisure,
Yeah.
the Greek and Latin roots of the word. And UCSI KL will become not just a place of learning, but a place where we will feel comfortable together as a community.
Well, let's check and see if there's any questions here that have come through.
Happy to answer them.
So, yeah, I guess one question to ask is, Chris, you say you've been here several times in Malaysia, and is there any food that you enjoy eating here, or any food when you say you came back, the first food that you had to eat once you set foot back in Malaysia?
It has to be char kway teow. It has to be char kway teow, of course. And I don't just love eating the food. I actually enjoy cooking. So I'm somebody who gets rid of the day and the strains of the stresses. And you can check it out with my wife, who is Malaysian. But I enjoy cooking, and so it's something. I come from a very creative background. I've got music inside me. I'll be teaching some music here. And I like to be creative with food, not just creatively eating it all the time. So char kway teow is the answer to your question.
Excellent. Well, we're going to go kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. That was a pretty light question, but a little bit more serious side of things. As the head of primary and secondary, I'm just assuming you're going to be in charge or helping with discipline issues. And so do you have, what could students expect on how they're going to be dealt with if problems do arise?
Yeah.
What would be the procedures?
The first thing is maybe to underline our principles, the principles upon which we effect discipline. To discipline always sounds very negative and very punitive. And discipline is not about punishment. Discipline is about building up habits, building up traits, building up attitudes, building up expectations. But that said, yes, we all do make mistakes. And something I think is very important when we want to coach young people towards better ways and better habits and better behaviors is for ourselves as teachers to be able to separate a behavior that is unacceptable from the student. Just because something was said or done does not make you a bad person. And every single one of us at UCSI KL as teachers and mentors will be adopting that approach. We all can look at our behaviors, but we do not judge you as a person because of your behaviors. We will engage with our young people in a fair and consistent way all the time, and consistency is very, very important for young people. Usually when young people want to understand how will this work in my school, consistency within the individual and ourselves as educators towards young people, and respect and clarity is going to be how we deal with discipline issues. That said, you, Matt, we are role models, and young people must
I've always said teachers are second parents, even in a sense, and it's not about, it's about developing a person, not just fixing the problem, but developing them to learn through their mistakes or learn through whatever conflict happened.
Absolutely. And
I think our job as teachers and as you as head of secondary is to help the students step back and see that, because students often don't have that perspective or the ability to get perspective and step back so quickly.
You're right.
I think we can help them with that a lot.
Sometimes our role is just to be a mirror, and to say to a student, what do you see? How will you fix this? What would you like to do? What do you think is reasonable? I will say also, just to add into that those of you out there who are watching this Facebook Live, you're there as parents. You're there as parents, and part of our way of doing things here is to ensure that you are part of your child's support network, and where discipline needs to be made clear in a positive, supportive way, we're going to be reaching out to you as well, and we're going to be holding parents accountable for the behavior, the way their child conducts themselves, presents themselves. That's not to threaten, that's just to say we are a partnership. I know it's a cliche,
it's the reality,
but it's the reality.
50% of their time is at school and 50% is at home, and habits are formed in both places. and character is formed in both places, and so we want those to be working together rather than in conflict with each other.
And I've talked about a little bit about international mindedness. UCS, any school such as ours, which is going to be very overt about international mindedness, we're not just a place to learn these skills, but I hope what we're going to give our students is also a very controlled and safe environment to practice those skills of international mindedness. And so again, I emphasize discipline is not a punitive thing. Discipline is about maintaining standards of who we are as human beings.
And character development.
Absolutely, character development, and will become part of those virtues that Philip has talked about in his presentations over the weekend, the different weekends. So it is a safe and controlled environment. Discipline is all about, starts with self. And again, I go back to that first one. Know yourself, know who you are, and we're here to help you.
Great, thanks so much for taking the time this morning, Chris, to answer some questions about you. And I think it's great for parents and students and the community just to be able to see a little bit about the teachers here at UCSI International School, Kuala Lumpur. And we hope that you've enjoyed joining our Facebook Live session. And stay tuned. In about 30 minutes, we're going to be reversing the roles, and Chris will be interviewing me. And so for those of you watching, we hope you will join us again.
And thank you very much.
Thanks
very much to everyone out there for tuning in. And thank you, Matt, for your questions. Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, guys.